Hello, everybody. Um, my name is Kelly, and I want to share with y'all my testimony. I wanted to show you the glory of our Lord Jesus, and I'm a little anxious in a good way, though, excited. I find it weird talking to a computer, so bear with me. Okay. Um, Whenever I was 19, I moved to Pennsylvania from Texas, and I moved there with my dad. It was just him and he moved there because his work transported him. So I didn't know anybody in Pennsylvania. So it was just him and I. We lived there for about 2 months, and then my biggest fear came to life. And my biggest fear was my father dying. I was always afraid of that because he was all I had, besides Buddy, my dog. And so when my father passed away, I kind of just like went haywire. I became your ultimate YOLO. You know how everyone says you only live once, and basically I was like your ultimate glutton in everything, like indulgent in everything. So when he passed away, I just started seeking truth because I thought, wow, my dad was only 61, he had an unexpected death, and he didn't even make it to retire to enjoy his life. So I was just, questioning things and confused and like, well, what's the point of life if we're just going to live and die, Like, you just grow up, be forced in a building, go to school for 12 years, then maybe some more, and then you go straight to work for a long time, and then you have a family, and then you die. And I really just couldn't accept that. I thought that God created us, I actually didn't know exactly God then, but I knew God was real, but I just thought, whatever created us, looking at the handiwork, the earth and the trees, like, so beautiful, and on us being so, like, such a cool creation, I thought, whatever created us, there's no way it just created us to just die. So I just started seeking truth. I started isolating myself, and seeking truth. During this time, when I was 19, I took care of my father's funeral. All that stuff lasted for a really long time, and I was in. I became a stripper. I said, you know what? I was just going to be a stripper because I couldn't find a job anywhere, and for some reason, I couldn't find a job anywhere. And I was like, you know what? I don't know anybody in the whole state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to be a stripper. Who cares, right? And because you only live once, right? You're just going to live and die. So I don't care. Judge me. Whatever. It's kind of how I thought. Like, do whatever. You're just going to die anyways. So I became a stripper, and I was dancing and making like tons of money. So I started to become, since I live like, oh, you only live once, I just started to use money ridiculously. I was just like, if you have money, just spend it. Have fun, spend it. Why would you save it all in a bank account till you're 60? Who knows if you'll even live that long? Why not spend it now? Like, obviously save enough money for your bills and stuff, but spend everything else. So I would just make lots of money. I would go to work, make money, save money, and during this time, as I was dancing, whenever you're a stripper, you have lots of time on your hands because you work from like 7 p.m. to like 2 in the morning. So, and your schedule is very free. When you're a stripper, you're a self-contractor, so you can work whenever you want and wherever you want. You can just go to any state and be like, hey, I want to work. And they're like, okay. And then you work that day. And so I really loved the freedom. I loved the freedom because I thought life was about like, enjoy life, be happy, do whatever you want. Why spend your life miserable? You're just gonna die. So just be happy, and just love each other. Don't hurt anybody, but just do what you want. I never would hurt anybody. So I just continued in that mindset. But for the whole time I had all this, I really like to be alone. I was a loner because I moved all my life. I lived in different states because my dad's job, we just moved all the time. So I'd have friends in different states, and I just got used to that, just moving, very nomadic lifestyle. And so it just kind of stayed with me. I was like, cool. And now that I'm a stripper and have all this money, I can just do whatever I want. So if I was one day just thought, hey, I want to go to Florida. Okay. So the next day I went to Florida and stayed there for a month because I could. Not only do you have money when you're a stripper, you have time. And most people have one or the other. You either have time or you have money. Or you have money and no time, It's hard to find the two together. So I really took advantage of this. I was like, wow. I was just thinking, this is awesome. I'm going to be a stripper for the rest of my life. That's what I would tell people. Like, because I can do whatever I want. I wasn't having sex with anyone. So I thought it was okay, Oh, I'm a good stripper is what people called me. People called me like an innocent stripper when there's no such thing. And so during this time, this is a 6-year period of me stripping and having all this freedom. So I just still was moving around from place to place. I'd live maybe in one place for like 2 months, maybe 6 months here. I go to Texas, live there, go to Florida, live there. And the whole time I was studying. I really liked to be alone because I could do what I wanted. I was very selfish because I wanted to do things when I wanted, but I would still go visit my friends because they never had time to visit me. So I would just go all over the world, really, because I could. And I thought, well, while we're on Earth, I want to do everything I possibly can. I want to do everything. I want to see everything. I want to hear everything. I want to try everything. Your ultimate just... I really didn't care if I die. Basically, I just... Honestly, I was obsessed with death because I was wondering why my dad died and why... Like, what happens when we die? But no one really knew I was studying this stuff because they knew I would just be studying. Friends would come over and I'd just be studying books, and everything I was studying was false. But I didn't know that. I'd go through phases. I'd be like, oh, I just found the answer. I found healing. I found this. And I would share with people once I studied the book. I'd read the book. I'd outline it, know everything about it, and then do it. Like, I read this book called Earthing, and it was about natural and being connected to the earth, and how every time you walk you have electrical units under your foot, and just all this nonsense that I thought was worthy, and I thought was healing me because I was obsessed with the idea of being perfect. Not like, oh, I'm perfect, but the idea of reaching perfection. I always thought whatever created us to be perfect. Look at this body. We heal on our own, and we're just resilient. We're awesome, and I want to reach perfection. And the whole time, everything I was studying was physical stuff, ways to get your body, your flesh perfect. By eating right and exercising and training your mind. Getting smart. And when people told me that thing where, oh, we humans only use 10% of your brain. I was like, I only use 10% of my brain? That's not even half. And I just couldn't believe that. I couldn't accept that because I felt really stupid. Because if that was true, that most humans only use 10% of their brain, I was like, I'm going to reach 100% of my brain. That's really what I thought when I was trying to do. So I'd study. I'd buy books after books after books and just study and flood my brain with all this information. I have so much knowledge in here that's useless, and it's just insane. but I thought it was cool and I thought I was doing the right thing. Like, I didn't believe in college because I didn't believe you're supposed to pay money to learn and to get smart. I think that's wrong. That, like, the exchange of knowledge is free college, and just study. Just learn for yourself. You don't have to go to a building and be taught. I was not for being still. Like, I did not want to be in a building. I hated school. I did not want to be stuck anywhere. I hated the idea of being stuck. It just was terrible. And so all this free time I had, sometimes I'd take months off of work. I'd like go to work, make enough money for a couple months of rent and food and all that, my bills, and then I just take off. I'd be like, hey, I'm not coming to work. And my boss would be like, all right, whatever. um, and what I would do in that time period is just study. And during all this time, I was smoking so much weed. So much weed, like pounds of weed. I loved weed, and I justified it by saying, weed is it's from the earth, it's natural, it's from the earth, so it's natural, and I'm not doing anything wrong, so I believe weed, go weed. That's how I was, and no one could tell me weed was bad, and now I know I will never smoke weed again, because I know the truth about it. It's like once Jesus reveals the truth to you about it, and you go back to it, you're living a lie. And like, it just feels icky to live lies. And I know the truth about weed, and it's awesome. Never in my life did I think I would not smoke weed. And I'm sure all my friends, any of you watching this now, you probably thought I'd never smoke weed too. You probably thought I was going to be a stoner stripper forever. But that's the glory of the Lord. And so, yeah, I was probably smoking like anywhere from like 8 to 15 blunts a day. No exaggeration. The expensive weed. And I used to get all my weed free, so the more the merrier is how I felt. And then I had a friend that had really good weed, and I just would smoke that. And people would come over and they couldn't believe I smoked this much weed and still just be coherent. And your body gets immune to things. And especially if it's evil, the devil doesn't want you to quit doing something, so he'll keep you fully functioning if you're on it. So at that time, yeah, I was smoking lots of weed, which means spending lots of money. And for like 6 years straight, I was probably high, like 99% of the time, all the time high. And I'm just surprised I have lungs. That's the glory of the Lord too, because He will restore you and give you health. It's just amazing. As I'm talking about my testimony, it's just amazing what God does for you and to you, and just really heals you. Because when I didn't know Jesus, I was dead bones walking, literally. Like, if you don't have spirit in your soul, you're just like a deadly flesh walking, and it's really scary to be that way. So anyways, high all the time, moving all the time. I never cried out to God, ever, in the 6-year period, because I was never taught to pray. No one ever told me to pray. I didn't even know what really praying was. I didn't grow up in the church system. I didn't really grow up around anyone. Like, I think when I was younger, my mom, we said a couple prayers, but I didn't really know anything about it. And so this whole time, I'm just going to and fro the earth, moving, hopping around, couch surfing, living at people's houses that I just met. If I met someone on the street and they're like, hey, you could stay here, I'd be like, all right. So I'd just sleep there on their couch or on their floor and hang out for a week until they got sick of me, and then left. And I met lots of people throughout this time, lots and lots of people. And I learned a lot. The Lord taught me a lot, even though I was disobedient to Him. He chastens and rebukes you, even if you're disobedient, to get your attention. And I had to go through a lot to learn to depend on Him, not go to man. So then I started studying, let's see, yeah, I was earthing, then I started studying it was like gems and stones, basically like gypsy stuff. I thought, the power of healing was in stones because I believed in the earth because it was natural, and I thought like we're like the earth. And so I started studying all that stuff, and using stones to like this stone will heal this part of your body, and then and this essential oil will do that, which those have properties, but it's not your healer. And then I started studying, what was it? I started studying Buddhism, and I was reading all like about Buddhism and like their proverbs, and just a whole bunch of books on Buddhism, and like extreme self-denial. I wanted to push my body to the limit. If I had a chance, I would walk on coals. I'm like, just mind over matter, rah, and just like just whatever. I used to say, whatever you believe is what will happen. Like whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So that's what I would think. Like, I'm choosing to believe that this doesn't hurt, and I used to like just practice qigong. As I studied qigong for a while. These were all phases. They were like 2-3 months here, 2-3 months of Buddhism, and then I got sick of that. It just wasn't fulfillment anymore. Then 2-3 months of qigong, which is like breathing exercises and tai chi and all these other stuff where you harvest energy, which is completely satanic, not of God. I thought like those were the answers, and like you bend your body back and like really weird stuff. And then I started studying. The whole purpose of all this like search was for healing. Like in the back of my mind, I just wanted to heal people. I'm like, man, I just want to heal people. Like everybody's sick. I just want people to be healed. So I was seeking, seeking for the truth to life. I grew up and I'd ask people, even some of my friends, I'd be like, where do we come from? Like where did we just get like dropped off on earth and just like, okay, like I would ask people that, and they're like, nobody knows, Kelly. Nobody knows exactly where we come from. Nobody knows the whole truth. They're like, just don't even ask, just accept it, And I'm just like, doesn't it bother you that you don't know where you came from and you're just like wandering on the earth like a robot, just like doing what everyone's supposed to do? I'm like, that bothers me that I don't know where I came from. Yeah, I came from my mom, but where did we all come from? And just people be like, just who knows, Kelly? Just it's too far for our minds to grasp. And I'm just like, fine. So I stopped asking people and just started reading, on my own. Then I started getting into yoga. I started getting into yoga. At first it started out with just stretching. I really thought stretching was the answer to heal our body because stretching is actually important. It's not bad. You can stretch, but yoga is not good. Do not do yoga. Yoga means unite, and it's Hindu, and you're uniting with Hinduism, which is not Christianity. So Christians and yoga don't go together. You can stretch, but Christians don't do yoga because it's Hindu practice. You're worshiping Brahma, which is a false god. But I didn't know all this stuff, I didn't even know what God's name was or anything. So I started listening to buying yoga books and practicing yoga. I went to a few classes, but I didn't really get into it that much. I was just getting into it at my house. Yoga felt so good, People would tell you yoga feels so good. Ever since I started doing yoga, it just my body feels great. And yeah, stretching it's good for your body. Stretching's good for your body, but don't connect it to yoga. Don't connect it to breathing exercises and chants and sequences. But so I can see the deception and how much Satan uses that for people. So I was doing yoga, lots of it. I would do yoga, just stretching and yoga in my room by myself. For the last 2 years of this seeking, I wasn't working. I had enough money, and I'll tell you that in a minute, that I was just like, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to hang out. So all those 2 years, when you have a lot of alone time and you don't watch TV and you just have alone time, you have enough time to study and read and find things out. So I was studying, or I was doing so much yoga. Literally, I would do yoga for anywhere from 1 hour to 6 hours a day of yoga, just straight stretching. Because I thought it was meditation. I thought it was meditating, and I thought I was super spiritual. You know, people probably thought I was the most spiritual person ever, when I was not. I was the most fleshly person ever you could possibly imagine. Well, that I know. Not in comparison, but yeah. So, this whole time doing yoga, I would sit in a yoga position for like 10 whole minutes in one position, and do that for hours a day. I'd do it for 2 hours and then go eat something, and then I'd come back and do it for another 4 hours straight. I got to the point where I was blindfolding myself and doing yoga because I didn't want any distractions. And I'd plug my earphones in and put in like Shiva music and just Hindu music and listen to it because I like the sounds and the tunes. And same with I forget the symbols, but it's like just certain music, and I would just sit there and listen to Shiva music, and that's not right. Shiva's a false god as well. It's Christianity. No, you just don't do that, and I didn't know this at the time. And so I did yoga for like 2 years straight. I was obsessed with it. I was gonna go to a yoga school and learn yoga, because it made me feel so good, because it's a false feeling from Satan. He wants you to feel good if it's false, so you can think it's okay. So I was practicing that for so long. It got to the point where I was becoming so vain, because I was obsessed with myself and the way I looked, and I thought yoga was making me look like, have just like the perfect body and stuff, that I became so vain that I wanted a smaller waist. Because you can become possessed. If you're not seeking Jesus, you can invite spirits into you. And yeah, so I didn't know this stuff, and I had like an extreme spirit of vanity. And I got to this point where I wanted my waist smaller. Like Satan was telling me that, oh, your waist is big, you know. So I just like wanted my waist smaller. So I went and bought a corset, and I think it's called corsetting. And back in the day, like the 1800s, women would wear these corsets, but they would wear them to contort their ribs, and they would wear them to bed. They would wear them for weeks, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna contort my ribs, like, cool. So I went and bought a corset, and I tied it tight, and I wore it for like a month straight, off and on, to sleep, and it actually felt good on my back, but what I was doing with it was completely demonic and a complete offense to God, because I wasn't loving who He created me to be. I wanted to be something different, smaller, and vain. And yeah, so I had this corset on, and I was trying to contort my ribs to make them smaller, make my waist smaller. And there's people out there right now who do this. There's this lady that does it, and she has like no waist now because her ribs are so contorted. Yeah, that's just another thing. Jesus says the truth will set you free, and I had so much bondage that I didn't even know I was in bondage to, and I just feel so free. And yeah, so He set me free from just that, from just like hating myself. You know, it's just wrong. And then as I was doing yoga, I started to study breatharianism, because I was like at the same time obsessed with food. I wasn't much of a drinker. When I was young, I was a hardcore drinker. I started drinking at like 14, 15, and I drank till I was like 17, and I would just get drunk all the time and have parties because my dad was always out of town. So my house was the party house, which is basically like Satan's playground, and people would come over to my house, and there'd be so much going on. Drunkardness, people getting high, you know, ecstasy, drugs, cocaine, mushrooms, basically everything you can imagine. And yeah, my dad would go out of town for like a whole month, so everybody knew to come to my house. Every state I lived in, I was alone. And you know, when I was 15 years old, we moved to Ohio, and he was like, hey, I gotta go out of town for a month. Here's the checkbook. I'll teach you how to pay bills, and here's a credit card if you need food. And I didn't know anyone, I just moved to Ohio. So for that month, I just had people over and we just partied and ruined, and just got belligerently drunk, and it's terrible. And all of you watching this right now that came to my parties, I'm sorry, and I love you all, and I hope that Jesus can speak to you through this. I'm just really thankful that nothing ever happened when I had those parties. No one ever got hurt. And so I was obsessed. I started to become obsessed with food because I was putting my comfort in food. I'm like, yeah, I'll just eat. Food's great, you know? So I started eating just all the time, you know? Just for comfort. If I was sad, I'd just cook something. If I was happy, I would just cook something. If I was high, I would just eat everything. I just eat, and eat, because that was just always there. It was always there, you know? And so then I started studying breatharianism. Breatharianism is people who believe that you can just live off air and breathing. You don't have to eat. So at this point, I was just like, that's different, because I was like loving eating. But at the same time, I thought this breatharian thing was cool. And like I said, I like to push myself to limits. I wanted to push myself and see what I was capable of, you know, because if I only use 10% of my brain, then I want to see what the other 90 can do. So I would just believe in everything. Everything I believed in. I believed in everything. And so as I was studying breatharianism, I was doing yoga at the same time. So instead of like doing yoga, or instead of eating, I would just like do yoga and breathe and do these weird qigong breathing exercises and replace my food with yoga and eating, or yoga and breathing, I'm sorry. So I did that. I did a 7-day fast a couple years ago, and that was just by the power of Satan, because I was doing yoga and qigong and breathing exercises and just thinking I can live off air. And for those whole 7 days, I felt great because it was false. It was a false feeling. But really, God sustained me because He had mercy on me. Even though I was doing things that were disobedient to Him, I didn't know. And it's just a good thing that I was ignorant. But yeah, so for 7 days, I did a fast. I think I was like 21. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I can just live off air and I don't have to eat anything. Like, cool. And work out. I worked out every day. People are like, you can't live this long and you'll become weak. I was working out like 4 hours a day, doing yoga, just not eating. But I still didn't have real peace. So I continued on to the next thing I wanted to study. So then I started studying Illuminati. And I found out a lot of truth. You know, there are a lot of truth in Illuminati, but it's not the truth. There are a lot of lies going on. It's really just Satan. And I started to become obsessed with the Illuminati, and it was driving me kind of cuckoo. And I was obsessed with it. And I was obsessed with the eye, the all-seeing eye. I was obsessed with triangles. I was going to go tattoo 8 triangles on my face. I actually have 2 little triangles right here. You probably can't see them, but I have 2 triangles right here. White. Tattooed. And I went to the tattoo shop and I told the guy I wanted 8 triangles. I was like, I want 4 right here and 4 right here. And he was like, okay. And he was like, no, I'm only going to do 2. And I was like, no, I want 8. And he was like, I'm only doing 2. And I was like, why? I want 8. And he insisted. He's like, I'm only doing 2. If you like them, you can come back and get more. That was totally Jesus, like, because I would have had triangles all over my face right now. So praise God for that not happening. So I was just obsessed with that stuff, and it was driving me insane. Then I realized it was driving me insane, and I started to become paranoid, and just like thinking the government was after me and stuff, because I knew all this secret information, and I was getting to the point where I wanted to sit downtown, like big cities, and expose the government. I was gonna, like that person. I was gonna tell people what the government's doing and how we're not free. Because I was obsessed with freedom. I was obsessed with freedom. Like, how we live on Earth. We're not free. We're subject to the government. We're not free. This is ridiculous. And I was obsessed with freedom. I was seeking freedom. I was sad that I was created and lived on this planet and wasn't allowed to go see really pretty places because I didn't have money. Like, I mean, I had money, but I just meant, like, if I wanted to go see this Mount Fiji, you'd have to have like $5,000 to go see it. And I was just like, why would a God create such a beautiful planet and us not just be free? You know, I didn't understand. And so I just kept being like anti-government and basically anti anything that was not free and love. And so then I started studying. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. There's just so much. Then I started studying the Bhagavad Gita. No, forgive me. That was later. I was studying powers. Like, I wanted to enhance my powers, like my eyesight. I believed like I could probably burn things with my eyes if I really believed it. And but I would never want to do that. I'd want to like love people, and I believed that in all these powers, I believed we could levitate. I believed like you just had to really believe it, and so I started studying books on powers, and which powers are not of God. It's divination. It's not of God. But I was studying all this stuff, and at the same time, I still didn't really have like a legit home. I was just moving from place to place, and just kept seeking the truth, seeking the truth. And this whole time, I guess I'll tell you how my dad died. So, my dad went in for surgery. He was going to get his kidney removed, and so he went in that day, and he was like, well, this is my last pack of cigarettes. I'm done smoking after this day, Kelly. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, right. And he was right. It's like he knew he was going to die. It's very strange. And the night before he died, I told my friend Patty, I said, hey, I think my dad's going to die tomorrow. I was like, I want to go home. So we left work, and I don't know why I said that. I guess it was God. And I went home and spent like an hour with my dad. And then so we were at the hospital, and then the nurse came rushing down because my dad got, all right, see ya. And I was like, see ya. And the nurse came rushing down and said, is your dad on any blood thinners? And I said, no. I mean, I don't know. Aren't y'all supposed to know that before he goes in and gets worked on? And then she was like panicking, and I knew something was wrong. Then she runs away and then comes back downstairs and said, I'm sorry, Kelly, but your dad didn't make it. And I was like, and just started crying. And I thought like a kidney, you remove your kidney, and it's usually a simple procedure. He was supposed to go home that day. So at this point, I'm just really upset, and I have nobody because my brother was in prison, and my mom, I don't really know where she was at this time. We didn't talk for about 2 years. She was going through some things, and I don't even know where she lived. And so I don't really know what to do at this point, but so when that happened, I'm like, my family's kind of like telling me I should sue the hospital, and in my heart, I really didn't want to. And they didn't push me, but they were like, if I were you, I would. I probably would do it. You need money or something like that. And so I just did. I ended up suing the hospital. And Christians don't sue people. Real Christians don't sue people. Jesus says, turn your cheek. If somebody hurts you, you turn your cheek and you pray for them. He said, love your enemies. So this time I was suing the hospital, and it was terrible. It went on for 4 years. I had to sign papers, and I was 19, and I just had to sign so many papers. I had no idea what I was signing. Just papers after papers, like a whole tree's worth of papers. And they're like talking in lawyer terms. I'm like, okay. Sign Kelly Schroeder, And so So, and I was the executor, the administratrix of the estate. So I was in control of everything, so I had to get all my dad's stuff together and all that stuff. So I go home and light up a blunt, and Patty's with me, my friend, and just I'm smoking and just wanting like to leave. I didn't even really want to be at that house. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna sell this house. So I was there for a month, and then I put the house up for sale because I didn't know what else to do. I was just running. I'm like, like when you don't have help, you're just like, I'm just gonna do this. So I put the house up for sale, and then the next day, this guy came over and bought it, and I was like, wow, that was fast. And so I told him like, okay, I'll write up a contract, but give me 30 days. And he was like, okay. So I had 30 days to get everything ready, and I still had money because I was still dancing. I had money to do whatever I want. Wasn't worried about that. So when my dad died, he left me this 4-bedroom house full of 60 years of things that he's accumulated over his lifetime, and a Jaguar, a Super Duty F-250, a lawnmower, a Dodge Caliber, and yeah, I think that's all the cars. So yeah. So at this point, I'm like, man, I don't know what to do with any of this stuff. My car was the Caliber, but it was all in his name. So I was still driving these cars, like insurance was out for like 6 months. The plates were out. They were dated from Texas, and we were in Pennsylvania. So in April, and this happened in February, I was like, okay, I'm gonna move. So I wrote down on a piece of paper 10 states, and I said, Patty, where do you want to move? So we wrote down 10 states, and then we narrowed it down to 3, and then finally we just chose Arizona. Well, I've never been there, so we just chose Arizona, and then we drove there. I'm like, do you want to leave today? She was like, sure. So we got in my dad's truck and just drove straight to Arizona. And we're like, well, we'll just figure it out when we get there. So we drove straight there, and we were going to stay in a hotel, but we couldn't because we weren't old enough. So we just slept in the truck, and we got on the computer and looked up houses, found a few, and then found one, and we told the lady, okay, we want this one. So I handed her like 2 stacks, like $2,000 for rent and all that, and I was like, okay, here, we want it, sign the lease, and then we left because we needed to go back to PA to get my stuff. So I'm back at PA, and just packing things, and then all of a sudden I look outside, and there's a truck in my front yard, a white truck, and I'm like, who's that? So I step outside, I look around, and I don't see anybody. So I go across the street, and it was to my neighbor's house. And this is a neighbor that I caught her in my garage. I heard something in my garage, and I came downstairs, and I was like, and I found this lady in my garage looking at my stuff, and I'm like, excuse me. She's like, oh, are you selling this stuff? Because I guess she found out my dad died, and I was like, can you please get out of my garage? So I went to her house, and I'm like, do you know who's in my front yard? She's like, oh yeah, that's my brother. And I said, okay, well, what's he doing in my front yard? And he came out and gave me a big hug and acted like really nice, and I was naive. And he's like old guy, grandpa, and he said, if you ever need anything, I heard what happened, let me know. And this time I needed everything. I needed help. So I was like, okay. And so I told him I was moving, and he said he worked for a moving company. So he got me like a 50-foot semi. I paid for it, and I loaded it all up, and we shipped it to Arizona. Boom, I moved, and then I was in Arizona. So then I moved back. I'm living there for a while, and it's just hectic because I'm having to fly back and forth to Pennsylvania to sign all these papers for the lawyer and all that stuff. So it just no peace whatsoever. Just back and forth, work, still stripping, work, hang out, smoke weed, do whatever, party, and just it just was terrible. So I was like, I'm gonna move back. So I moved back to Pittsburgh. I called a moving company, and they ripped me off. It was like $7,000 to move all my stuff. Oh yeah, and I had to transport all the cars. So I called a transporter and I transported the Jaguar and the Dodge Caliber. Oh yeah, and I had a Harley Davidson. I forgot about that one. My dad had a Harley Davidson. I paid that off because I was gonna keep the Harley and like for my brother. And all the time I had all this stuff. Originally, I wanted to just get rid of everything that my dad owned, but I kept it all for my brother because he was in prison and he had no closure with my dad. You know, they wouldn't let him come to the funeral, so I just wanted to keep this stuff for him. When it's just stuff, but I thought maybe it'd help. So I'm dragging all this stuff around. Transported the cars to Arizona. Then when I moved back, I transported the cars back. I moved back and had everything. And then I put things in a storage unit. And at the same time, I'm still studying. I'm still reading, flooding my mind with things like New Age stuff, still doing yoga, still doing all this stuff. Not praying, not seeking Jesus. It's just still getting worse, you know, just super anxious and anxiety all the time. It just was bad because I had so much stuff to deal with, and I really just didn't want any of it. So I moved back, and at this point, like, I didn't have a place to go yet. So we were staying at, I think I was staying in Delmont. We just got a place in Delmont and Pennsylvania. And so we moved there, and then I was working back at the club in Pittsburgh. And so I'm still, you know, going through the lawsuit and stuff. This is like, I don't know, a year or two maybe. Everything's still going. I'm still just traveling, doing whatever I want, you know, going to and fro. And I get back to Pittsburgh and wow, no, oh, okay, I remember. I went to Ron's house. Ron was the guy that said, if you ever need anything, let me know. So, and got me he got me the semi. So I said, yeah, actually, I don't have anywhere to stay. And I looked at him as my grandpa, you know? So he's like, you can stay at my house. You and Buddy, I have an extra bedroom. He'll have a dog to play with. So I was like, okay. So he lived in Akron, Ohio. And I was staying in Ohio, which was 2 hours from my work. And I didn't have a car yet. So he said he would help me get a car. The reason why I didn't have a car is because when I was in Arizona, all of the cars got repoed, one after another. I guess like the people came and found the cars. First they repoed the truck, and then they repoed my car. So I was just walking everywhere. I was just walking wherever. And so I flew back, and when I was living with him, he's like, I'll help you get a car. I had no credit, but I had lots of cash. So he's like, I'll help you get a car. I'll co-sign for a car. I was like, cool, sweet. So he co-signed for a car. You know, it was in his name and my name, and I was just paying my my bills. So as I have the car, I'm going to Pittsburgh and back to his house, and Buddy's there. And it was nice to have a place and somebody to take care of my dog. Well, I could go do what I want. You know, I was doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I had no restrictions. I had no one telling me what to do, what not to do. And even if they did, I would not listen. I was very rebellious. Very, very rebellious. And I was always involved with drugs, involved with so much. There's so much. I really hope you guys are keeping up because there's so much to say. During this time period, I started selling weed. And I bought 3 pounds of weed. And it was like $15,000. And I went to drive to Texas to pick up this weed. and I left on like a Thursday, got back on a Sunday. I drove there, picked up 3 pounds of weed, slept for one night, and then drove straight back. And so I had this weed, and I was selling weed to all these people, and it started to just get really bad. There was one incident where this guy owed me $3,000, and he kept like joshing me around, and telling me, "Oh, I'll pay you back," and he'd come see me like to make things look good. And then one time he came, and it's been like 2 months, he still hadn't paid me back my $3,000. Well, my dad had a gun, and so I went and got the gun, and I set the gun on the table, and I waited for him to come over. And when he came over, I picked up the gun, and I just had it in my hand right next to my side, in my right hand. And I said, "When are you going to pay me back?" And he said, "I told you I'm going to pay you back." And I said, "You haven't paid me back yet." And I had the gun in my hand, and I picked the gun up, and I was like, "Do you really think I'm joking? Like, I'm not joking. Like, I have this gun here," and I'm like shaking with the gun, but I'm just, by the grace of God, there had been an angel that made me not do anything. But this is what darkness will do to you, and possession. And then I said, "Get out of my house," and I put the gun down. My friend was there with me, and she was probably panicking too, and she was telling me to put the gun down. And so I put the gun down, and he left, and I never saw him again. But I think I saw him on the news, and he went to prison. But yeah, so during this time, I was on probation because I got pulled over for a DUI. I was smoking a blunt driving, and the cop pulled me over, and I was in the middle of smoking, and they took me to jail, and so I was on probation at this time. So just by the grace of God, nothing happened to me. So as my friend has got me this car, I left Buddy at his house, and I stayed in Pittsburgh at Patty's for like at my friend's for like probably 4 nights. And so I called the guy on like the third night, and I was just gonna say how Buddy was and stuff. He didn't answer. So I called the next day, he didn't answer. Called the next day, he didn't answer. I started to feel weird, and I was like, okay, is this guy stealing my dog? What's going on? And at this point, I was staying at his house, so I kept all my personal information there. I kept everything there. He even said I could keep the Harley Davidson there. Like, yeah, I have a garage, you can put it in. I was like, cool. So I put it there at his place. When you're naive and don't have knowledge from heaven, you don't have spiritual discernment, you're blind. So he didn't answer, and I felt like he was stealing Buddy. And then he answered, and he's like, "Yeah, all you do is come here, and you're with your friend all the time." And it was like he was jealous or something. It was really creepy. And I knew things started to get weird. I started to become observant, because one night he came into my room, and he had a glass of liquor, and he's like, "Here, I made this homemade," and he like sat on my bed, and he's like, "Try it," and it was like just that much. And moonshine, I guess, gets you drunk. And I was like, I didn't really know what to do, and so I was like, okay, and I just like pretended I drank it, and I didn't drink it, and I said, yeah, and then I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep, and I went to sleep, and then that's when that happened. He was like not answering my phone, so I call him, and he was trying to steal my dog. So he would try and teach me things. He would try and teach me how to rip the government off, because they rip us off, and he would teach me how to fraud people and stuff. And since I was like all anti-government, I didn't do any of it, but I was like, wow, cool. He'd teach me how to like just really bad stuff. And so my friend's mom, I was like, I don't know, I can't get a hold of him, and I can't get my dog. I think he's trying to steal my dog, because he loved my dog. And so her mom was like, well, let's just drive there. So we got in the car, we drove 2 hours, went to his house, and knocked on his door, and he didn't answer for like a whole 15 minutes. And I was beating on the door, and then my friend's mom went to the back. Was like, "I got a brick. I'm breaking in. We're getting Buddy." And I was like, And then finally he comes out, and he didn't say anything. He has a shoebox in his hand, and before I take the shoebox, I'm like, "I can't believe you did this, blah blah blah," and I was cursing, and I was like, "Yeah, I can't believe you did this to me. Like, you try and steal my dog, and such and such and such." And so I kept all my stuff there. And then finally it calmed down, and Buddy, he bolted out. Buddy bolted. I was like, Buddy! and then so I just had so much anger in me that I would have punched him. The anger in me, like, anger's not from God. It's manifested through darkness and through sin. And I would have done something terrible to him that I would have felt terrible after. And in the shoebox was a copy of my birth certificate and a copy of my social security card, and that was it. So he kept my real copies of my identification, and he kept the title to my Harley, which was my dad's, but I paid it off with my money and wrote, like, so it was mine, but I didn't sign anything, like the title, but he kept the title to my Harley and actually stole the Harley Davidson too. So he stole my dad's Harley Davidson. Still to this day, don't know where it is. And it was worth like $15,000, which money doesn't matter, but I was saving that for my brother. And there was a bell on the Harley that my brother wanted, and I didn't know that, but I didn't have control of everything, so I couldn't keep it. And I'm sorry, Justin. And so at this time I just left, and I was like, well, he stole my identity. So at this point I was kind of living in paranoia. Paranoia is not of God. God is peace. So I didn't have anywhere to sleep or live. So my friend's mom said I can stay with them, and there was 4 of us, 2 dogs, in a 1-bedroom apartment. So I was staying there, and I still had the car, and still working. And I guess he went to my friend's aunt's house a few times, the guy, and looking for me. And I didn't know this, but I was scared, I didn't know what he was going to do. He knew a lot of sneaky things and was not a good person. I pray that he knows the Lord now. But so through this time, I was suffering paranoia, and I would always look over my shoulder to see if look for his truck. I'd always look over my shoulder looking for a truck. I just never looked at peace. If he looked at me, I'd always be like, because I thought this guy was stalking me, which he was. And I would hide behind my hair when I went out so people wouldn't look at me if he saw me and stuff. It was terrible. And then a couple months go by, and I'm starting to just forget, and just let go. And because I didn't want to live in paranoia, it was terrible. And then I go out to my car. He didn't know where I was staying at this time, but he, I guess, followed me home from work one night, and which I didn't know, and found out where I was staying. So I one morning woke up and I went to my car, and he had an extra key to my car, and I look in the front seat, and there's an envelope in the front seat, and I just was like, what's that? And my heart was like, ugh, I don't want to know what that is and don't want to know. So I opened it, and I lived there, so I had all my stuff there, and in my envelope was a pair of my underwear, and I wanted to vomit because I was so disgusted. I guess he went through my stuff while I was living there, and paranoia was creeping in again because now he knows where I was at, and it was terrible. It was so terrible. So I had realized I had to cut all ties with him. I didn't even want my car. I was like, I'll walk everywhere. I will walk in the snow. I don't care. I don't want any of this connected to me, because I still had connection to him because he co-signed for the car. So I was like, I know, I'll just drive the car off a cliff. And but I thought of something better, and I just was like, I'll drive it to a dealership and see if they'll buy it. So I did, and they bought it, but they only would buy it for $7,000, and I owed $8,000. So I paid $1,000 for them to buy it, and they bought it, and then I had no more ties to him, and it was like, it felt so good. Yeah, so I hadn't seen him since, and I let go of things, and I just decided to let go, and I had no more paranoia. It was so amazing. It just felt so good to not live in that. And during that time, then I moved. This is when I moved to Delmont. And I'm skipping a lot of stuff because I'm trying to keep it short, but there's so much, and I just hope everybody's keeping up. So I moved to Delmont, and at this time I'm still working, still dancing, and the whole reason why I was a stripper, well, in the beginning was to make money, but then after I realized I loved dancing, I wasn't there to like get drunk and be with men. I just truly love dancing. I love dancing. Dancing is just so much fun and so freeing. And whether you're on a pole or not, the pole I thought was cool because it was like acrobatic and you could do really cool stuff on it. I wasn't dancing to like seduce people, even though I was still doing so, like, but that wasn't my mind. God knows the truth. He knows. Um, but regardless, it was still wrong, and it's not of God to be a stripper. But whenever you're doing things in purity, it saves you from a lot of demonic things with your intentions of your heart motive. So I just love dancing, I just would want to go on stage. I wouldn't want to go really talk to anybody. I just wanted to go on stage all the time, just play. It was fun. But I would never, ever, ever go back to the club. And now I can just dance for the Lord in the parking lot, wherever, in my house, dance for the Lord. It's so much beautiful now. Has meaning. And so the whole, I'm still in the club, and at this time I started studying the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is about, it's Hinduism, and I liked it because it was extreme self-denial. But it's self-denial, it's satanic self-denial. It's like, you don't deserve anything. So I'm like, I want to deny myself so much that I don't even want a house, And I got to this point where I just wanted to get rid of everything, and I didn't want to own anything. I had so much of my dad's junk and stuff and cars and problems that I didn't want to own anything. I wanted to just like live under a bridge, and I just wanted to be homeless really and hop around and love people and talk to people, and then that actually became reality. So during this time, I'm still going through the lawsuit, still going through all this mess, and just waiting. So I lived in Delmont for a while, partied there, had people over, still smoking lots of dope. I was into ecstasy a lot. Actually, whenever I was like 17, when I was living in Texas, I was completely a high roller in like ecstasy. I loved techno lights, and I still love techno, but I don't need drugs to make it better. I just can listen to techno and praise the Lord. A lot of Christians think like you can only listen to pure music and like music. That's not true. It's your heart motive. You can listen to a beautiful techno song and think about Jesus, as long as it's not wicked or dirty talking. The Lord knows. So as this time when I was 17, I started going to the clubs, because I didn't get along with anyone in school really, because I wanted to explore and experiment. I didn't want to just read. I hated studying. I hated school. I hated being locked in a box. I hated it. So I would skip school all the time, just leave school, and start hanging out with like 25-year-olds, and I was 17. So I started going to this club called the Lizard Lounge, and it's in Dallas. And you have to be 21 to get into the club, but I just showed them my ID that said I was 17, and they're like, well, okay. And I was like, whoa, cool. So I went to that club every Friday for 8 months straight. And it opens at 7 p.m. and it closes at 4 a.m. And from 7 to 4, I probably had eaten like 15 ecstasy tabs, and I would wear like terrible clothes there. I would dress like a prostitute and go there, and because I didn't care, it made me feel love. Like when I was on this drug, all I did was want to like hug people and love people and tell how much everyone I loved them, and which is a good thing, but it's a false love. Drugs are of the devil. That's why people are hooked on them, because it gives you such a euphoric, fleshy feeling that you only want to feel that. So I would go to the club from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., and then, that Lizard Lounge would close, and then Insomnia, which was the next club, would open at 4 a.m. So we would go to that club, and it would close at 8 a.m. So I would go there, and we'd eat more ecstasy, dance around, jam music. I have a messed up ear from all the bass I used to listen to. and I would do GHB, which is liquid ecstasy, which is paint thinner and floor stripper, and it's in a water bottle. It's clear, so people bring it in as water, but really it's not. And so a cap, I would drink caps of it, and it would be liquid X. I'd drink that, and this is all like in just a night's going, you know. I would smoke weed on top of that, and oh, so I did that, and oh yeah, and then that club ended at 8 a.m. and the next club opened at 8 a.m. and it closed at 12. But I would leave at 10 because I had to be home in time for work. And I lived an hour away. Dallas was an hour away from my hometown. So I would go back to where I lived and I would go straight to work. I didn't sleep for days. Go straight to work, still on ecstasy. I worked at Sonic and I would just bebop around and I'd work like 11 to 11. And just, I would make a lot of money. When I was a kid, I didn't have bills. And I make like $50 a day. So I made a lot of drug money and gas money and glow stick money. And I would go there and look ridiculous. Because when you drink orange juice and when you, like other things like enhance your high, so like vapor sticks, I would walk around the club and outside with 2 vapor sticks up my nose and just, and a baby binky, because my teeth would chatter from the drugs. So I would chew on my baby binky, and I was 17 years old, and I would walk around places like this, and completely embarrassing, with these vapor rubs up my nose, and I would just walk around downtown, wherever, with like a bra on, nothing. I would just wear clothes that I was so provocative, and yeah, I did that for a long time. I started to like get really skinny, and my brain just, I lost a lot of serotonin, which is like, and dopamine, because it's terrible, and you don't sleep much, and you just drain your body. You're dying. You're killing yourself. So after like 7 months, I went to the club sober. I was like, I'm gonna go sober, and that was a reality check and a wake-up call, because everyone I was around wasn't sober, and they looked like me. They had, you know, their things up their nose and baby binkies, and just, and then when I saw that sober, I just was like, wow, that's what I look like, and I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I stopped. But I still liked the environment because it felt lovey. Like people would be like just hugging you, and it just was love. So I'd still go. I went for like another month, and then I just was like, no, I don't want to go anymore. So I just stopped going. And yeah, I just stopped doing that. And praise the Lord, because I probably had eaten like 200 ecstasy tabs, maybe 250. You know, I got them so cheap or free that I was just eating them like candy. And 250 ecstasy pills, that's like rat poison and all types of stuff. And I still have a brain because the Lord, He restores and heals and is merciful. So it's just amazing, you know, just what the damage we can do to ourselves, and how the Lord will still sustain us because of His mercy and grace. And so whenever I was still studying, or I was back studying the Bhagavad Gita, let's see, I was living in New Jersey. I lived near my mom. And I went there and stayed there for about 8 months, and I still wasn't really working. I mean, I worked there. I worked in New Jersey. I was still stripping, but this time it was like a not naked club, and I just liked dancing. So even though I didn't make money, I went there to dance, and it was like a hook that Satan had on me, because it was idolatry. I was idolizing dancing, and so I would hardly work, like once or twice every other week, and most of the time I just spend time studying. I would just keep studying, reading whatever I could read, meditation books, any shamanism. I started getting into shamanism, anything possible. So I was there studying and reading, and I started going to the bar a lot in New Jersey, but I wasn't drinking because I pretty much quit drinking. I just like to shoot pool and play music. So I would go to the bar and shoot pool and play music and all the time. And um, uh, during this time, I was still all over the place. My mind was all over the place. I was seeking like happiness. I was like, I know, like I kept moving because I was trying to find a place I felt like home. Like I wanted to feel like I was at home. I was searching for a home. I never felt like I was at home anywhere. I felt like I didn't belong on earth. And I was seeking a place of comfort now. So I kept moving like maybe I'll like it here, maybe I'll like it there. And and finally I was like, maybe I'll just buy a camper. So I bought a camper. And I bought a camper and didn't even use it. I didn't even move it. I gave it to my mom because I didn't want it. And I bought a truck to pull it, so I had this Super Duty Lariat truck for a while, and it was fun to drive. And then I just felt one day like I guess it was God, but or maybe not. No, it was not. But I thought it was something like get rid of your truck. So I just woke up and I was like, I'm just gonna get rid of my truck. So I woke up and I went to the dealership and I was like, hey, do you want to buy my truck? And they're like, yeah, here's 8 grand. So I was like, cool. So I paid off my truck and still had some cash left. So now I had no car, just walking everywhere. And my family just didn't understand. They're like, why would you sell your truck? How are you going to get around? And I was like, I'll just walk everywhere. Like, I plan on being homeless one day. I was like, I just don't want to own anything. I don't care about anything. I was very, I didn't care about anything, really. Nothing. At all. Like, yeah, nothing. So I sold the truck, and then I was still living there with a little bit, spending time with my mom. If I skipped this major part, before I moved there, I moved to Ohio because I thought, I know, I'll just buy a house and live in it and settle down, because I always flew all over the Like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, he's like, that's not good. That shouldn't happen. And I was like, yeah, but it did. Oh well, you know. And so like a couple weeks go by, and I get a call from the lawyer, and he says, Kelly, that's not right. You know, I want to do this for you free. You should get your money back. That's not right. And like, he's right. You know, it wasn't right. But I didn't want to sue them because I was still suing the hotel or the hospital. I'm like, man, I don't want two lawsuits going on. This is ridiculous. So I said no, and he's like, I'll do it free. I just want to help you. And he's like, that's wrong. And I said, okay, fine, whatever. So, and I didn't really want to do it. So, but he was just being nice, you know, and which I appreciate, and I appreciate my boss also, even speaking to the guy, caring about me, you know. Thank you. So I was going through that, and then so that went on for a year, and I had to actually face him, and we had to go to a mediator, and that was ridiculous. They held the mediator, like where you meet the person, you talk to the guy, and you tell each other your story. It was held in a church. I was like, wow, this is awkward. So met him, and he brought all these photos saying how I ruined his house, which is not true, and God knows. But all these photos of the house, what it looked like when I bought it. And he said he was going to do all this work to it, but anyways, he said I ruined the house. So I ended up getting 10,000 back, and he got the other 10,000. And I'm like, whatever, you know, I don't care. I didn't want any money back in the first place. So I just wanted to love people, you know. I didn't want to like go through any nonsense. So then yeah, after that happened, that was over. Thank goodness. Thank God. And then that's when I was in New Jersey. I was still going through the administratrix with the estate of my dad's death and funeral and stuff, and the lawsuit. Well, my lawyer called me, and he's like, your lawsuit's done. And I was like, yay, 4 years later. And so he's like, okay, you get $200,000. And that's how much they've settled for. And I was like, okay, you know, and 100,000 of it was for me, and 100,000 of it was going to be for my brother. So he sent me, I was like, just send it in like 2 checks, you know. So he sent one, and you know, like a week later, I get a check for 100 stacks. I had $100,000. And I didn't even need money, you know, I was stripping, I had money, I didn't really care about this money. So the check comes, I get it, and I'm like, cool, $100,000, and I set it on the table, and I forgot about it. I let it like 2 months went by, and I'm like, whoa, I need to cash that, or it's gonna void, you know. And honestly, I was afraid of it because I hated money because of what it was doing to people, the greed in the world. I just hated it, so I just didn't want to mess with it. But I was like, well, I mean, I still use money, and I like still can do things with it, you know. And so finally, I was like, okay, I'll cash it. So I put it in the bank, and I was like, man. And they're like, oh, have you heard about our blah blah blah? Because like I have money now. And I was like, no, just leave it in the bank. And so, what I said to myself was, I'm gonna spend every penny of this. I'm gonna blow it. That's what I said. I was gonna blow it until, who knows? I was gonna blow it. That's what I said. I'm gonna blow all of it. I didn't deserve it. I didn't sweat for this money. I didn't deserve any of it. So I'm just gonna blow it. I'm gonna spend it on my friends. I'm gonna spend it on homeless people. I'm gonna spend it on food. I'm gonna spend it on love and joy and fun and traveling and whatever else. So that's what I did. And because I was you know, be happy, do whatever you want. Who cares what people say? Just be happy and love people. That's what I live by. Don't judge, you know. I didn't care if you did heroin. I would hang out with you because I love you. I was like, it's not my choice, it's your choice, you know. Little did I know that, little did I know anything. At this point, I didn't even know heaven was real or hell. So I just lived like you know, YOLO, you only live once, and it's a lie from Satan. And so, as this was happening, let's see, yeah, I got the money, and secretly, I just wanted to die. I just wanted to die. You know, I would never kill myself because that's really selfish. I would have never killed myself. But I just wanted to die. I wanted to leave Earth because of all the pain and all the hurt and the evil in the world. And like, I missed my dad, and I wanted my brother home, and I wanted my family together, and my friends were hurting, and I just wanted to die, you know? Secretly, I like wished for death all the time because I hated living. I hated being on Earth. I hated it. So that's why I liked to live on the extreme. I was an adrenaline junkie. I wanted to do whatever I possibly could to floor adrenaline and make me feel like I was almost dying. You know, I would go skydiving because I loved how I felt like I could possibly die. I had a 50-50 chance of dying. That was awesome to me. And just got really extreme because I never told anyone this, but because they probably would have thought I was nuts, but I was just thinking, like, why would anyone want to stay here? Why would anyone want to live on this planet? Why? You know, everything's meaningless. I would even tell people, like, I loved flirting with the devil, but I didn't know I really was. You know, I would do anything that would get my adrenaline going, fleshly wise, hang off of a cliff, whatever it was. I was so obsessed with death that my name on Facebook was Die Hard Kelly. And people would call me Die Hard. They'd be like, "What's up, Die Hard?" And words are powerful. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Those that love it shall eat their fruits thereof. So if you're speaking those things, you're actually speaking curses or you're speaking life. So every time everyone said, "Hey, Die Hard," like they're saying, "Hey, die hard." But yeah, it's really extreme. So, and I loved it because I wanted to die hard. People would be like, "Why's your name Die Hard?" And I'm like, "Because I want to die hard. I want to leave a legacy of like how I did everything and lived a full life of love and had fun and known as the wild child and this and that." And so I'm just so blessed right now that I didn't die because I would have went to hell. I still can't grasp that. Hell's real. Anyways, I was so obsessed with death that this is terrible what I did to my mother, and I'm really sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry I put you through this. But I was like, "Mom, let's go funeral shopping." And my mom was like, "What?" And I said, "No, let's like go to the store and buy outfits that we want to be buried in and we want to be in our coffin." And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "It'll be fine, Mom. Just think of it as like it's not a big deal, and I'll pick out my outfit. We could pick out your outfit." And my poor mom, she went with me because she loves me. She said, "Okay," but I know in her heart she was shivering. And during this whole 6 years, while my brother was in prison, I'd write him letters here and there. I'd go visit him really often for me living in places, and it was really hard because, you know, he was in prison in far places, so I would have to drive and find someone to watch Buddy and just get things all worked out, but it always worked out. And I didn't write my brother near enough because I was living selfishly. I didn't even want kids because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I was like, why would I want kids when they'll like distract me and this and so much, and the Lord has made me a woman now, and I would love to have children. That's what a woman is supposed to do. Have children and take care of the house and take care of her husband and submit to her husband and live for the Lord and live for her husband. I used to tell people that I'm never getting married. Why would I get married? It's just too wicked. Like, too many people just are, cheat on each other and this and that. And, I was in a terrible relationship and thought it was love, but it really wasn't love. It was abusive. It was all about lying and cheating, and it was false. And it's just like, and the whole time, just I was looking for love, I guess. I was like, well, this is what we do. We grew up and I have a boyfriend, even though I never really wanted one. I liked being alone. And I now know why I didn't want one, is because I wasn't meant to have one yet. You're not supposed to have a boyfriend until you're supposed to get married first. Like, get to know the person first, yeah. So anyways, I moved away from New Jersey and I moved to Texas, and I was living with a friend and her boyfriend. And she was so sweet. She made a little pallet for me in her living room. I lived on the floor in the living room. My business was right in the living room. And she made a little bed for me, so sweet. And I lived there for about 6 months. And while I was there, I was just studying all the time, doing yoga, going to her work. I started drinking a little more there. It's weird. I guess loneliness and boredom or something. And I was reading the Bhagavad Gita still. And then all of a sudden, my friend, she said, Kelly, Jesus is the truth. And I was like, well, okay, I'll try it. I pretty much tried every other religion. So, the reason why I didn't read the Holy Bible first is because, all my friends that say they know Jesus and go to church on Sunday, they were hanging out with me. They would go to the strip clubs with me. They would smoke weed with me. They were having sex before marriage. They were doing ecstasy with me. Like, everything I was doing, they were doing. So I thought, like, for sure Jesus wasn't the truth, because their lives didn't match what Jesus said. So I was like, that was like, I thought for sure that I thought the Bible was just man-made and was for control. I would roll blunts on the Bible, and laugh, like, because I didn't know it was God's real word. I was against man. I hated being controlled by man, and not being able to think for myself, and being told what to do, and it was terrible. So she sent me a Bible, and then I went and bought one, and I started reading it. I didn't understand anything I was reading, but I thought it was a beautiful book. It was the first time I had ever read one. So I started reading it, and she'd send me verses, be like, Matthew 19. And I'd go look it up, and I had fun. It was like a game, kind of. It was fun. All the time she'd send me things, and I'd read it, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, this is so beautiful. But I was going back and forth from the Bhagavad Gita to the Holy Bible. And then and back and forth. But I was reading the Bible more, but I still was searching. So at the same time, while I was in Texas, I met somebody, and he was a Buddhist, and he's like, yeah, I go to these meetings. So I started going to these meetings, these Buddhist meetings, and we would sit there and in like someone's house and chant these words. And I'm not gonna repeat them because I don't even like them. Like, I mean, it just said something beautiful, but it's not right. It's false. It's a false religion. It's not the truth. And I was a truth seeker. I wanted to know the truth. But while I was there, I liked it because there were people and we were talking. We would just eat together and love each other. And I'm like, cool, this is cool, So I went to like 3 or 4 of those. And at the same time, while I was in Texas, I met this other person. And he introduced me to sweat lodges and the Indian type way. And I really liked the Native Americans because I thought that they really appreciated everything. I thought, like, they appreciated the earth. When they kill an animal, they use all of it. They don't just take what they want. They use the skin for, to keep warm. And I thought, yeah, this for sure, I'll like this, because I just thought that they were really thankful. and earthy and natural. I like natural, no makeup, none of the extra junk, just what we started out with. I would always like close my eyes and imagine the beginning, whatever that was, because I didn't know then what it was, but I know now. I would just imagine like when the earth had nothing on it. I'm like, we would just eat the food and be farmers. I'm like, we're all meant to just take care of the land and take care of each other. No money, no money. I was like obsessed also with moneylessness. I started reading books on moneylessness, the Moneyless Manifesto, and the free gift economy, how you just depend on free gifts and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, wow, that's cool. If everyone just did the barter trader, that'd be awesome. And so I went to a sweat lodge for the first time. And when I get there, we get there and pull up. It's like a big piece of land with like buffalo on it and one house. And we pull up and people are just like starting this fire. And it's a giant fire and there's stones in the fire. Like maybe this big. And they're in the fire and there's anywhere from like 10 to like 50 or 100 stones in the fire, and they just be heated up all day. And so when you start the sweat lodge, it's just like a dome of sticks like this, and then you go clockwise around it and you put blankets all over the sticks, probably like 50 blankets. And you you close out all the light, and then it becomes like this little dome, and no light can come in, no air can come in, nothing can come in. It's just a lodge, sweat lodge, pitch black. And so there's a bunch of things that happen before you go in, and you have to wear like a dress. Women have to wear long dresses. You can't show your legs, and men are covered as well. And women sit on one side in the sweat lodge, and men sit on the other side. So there's like very ceremonial, like so many. It's like bondage, so many ceremonies, and I thought it was awesome. I'm like, nature, fire, we're gonna sweat, because I love sweating, because I thought it got out, like it cleansed your body, which it does, but just sweating, not doing what I'm about to tell you. And so we would go in and they'd have like sage and they'd smudge you with it, your feet. They think like that wards off witches, when actually it actually brings in like more demons, evil spirits, when they think it cleanses, and it doesn't cleanse. And Jesus will show you the truth. Anything I tell you in this video, just seek Jesus on. He'll tell you the truth. So, you smudge, and then there's a person who's a firekeeper, and they're the one that makes the sweat lodge go, pretty much. So we each go in, and before you go in, you kiss the ground if you want, but you say like Homo Wateskiaska, and it just means like in our relations to the earth or something. And that's not right, because we're not in relation to the earth. That's like worshiping Mother Earth, and we worship the Lord Jesus Christ, our creator of the earth. I mean, I'm thankful for the earth, but the earth came from God. So you go in, and then you sit down, and then in the middle of the sweat lodge, it's real low. Even children go in, like 5-year-old children go in. And you sit down, and in the middle of the sweat lodge is a hole. And so there's a firekeeper. And when we get in, we sing songs. Like there's Indians in there too. They beat the drums, and the music's cool. There can be good things about it, but the way it was done is just, it's wrong. And I thought for sure this was it. I thought for sure like sweat lodges was it. I was planning on going to live on a sweat lodge farm land and help people do the sweat lodges, because I thought this was it. They're so thankful. They cook for us. They cook together. And so anyways, we get in there and we sing songs, and you can open your eyes or close your eyes, but you can't see because it's pitch black. And might I remind you, like when I went there, you're just with strangers. You don't know anybody. So, but I didn't live in fear, because perfect love casts out fear. So when I was in there, the firekeeper goes to get the stones that have been heated up over 8 hours. So you get the stone. Everything they use, they believe in using natural things. They start the fire with their hand. They don't like to depend on man. So the firekeeper has these deer antlers, and they use the deer antlers and pick up the stone, and they bring it into the sweat lodge, and they put it in the middle of the sweat lodge, in the hole. So every time a stone comes in, that stone is hot. And there's like a person that has 3 different bags. In each bag, one bag may be lavender, one bag may be cedarwood, one bag may be sweetgrass. And they're all just herbs from the earth, but they're not meant to be inhaled like this. It's very dangerous. But at this time, I was believing in herbs. Like, I'm like, inhale! They're natural, you know? So every time a stone would come in, they'd put some on a stone and it would come up in smoke and we'd inhale it. You know, and that's supposed to be cleansing your lungs and cleansing everything, these natural stuff. And so every time a stone would come in, it'd get hotter, because if there's 50 stones that are this big and they're hot, it just gets hotter and hotter. And every time the stone comes in, they pour water on the stone, so the smoke, the steam rises. So when you're in there, the sweat lodge, you start sweating, because it can get up to like, it probably had to have been like 300 degrees in there, 200 maybe. I really don't know. Maybe because I know a sauna is like 160 and this was way hotter. I felt like my face was melting. Like, I'd have to check and make sure I was still there. But I was such a self-denial person, like, deny the pain, deny it. Who cares? You know, you're burning, but just ignore it. You know? So, in this, like, as we're singing, we're inhaling and stuff, and the children only stay for like 10 minutes because it gets too hot. And they say if you get too hot, you just lay down on the ground, on the earth, and it's cool, which it is cool. Like, it's cooler. So the whole time we're in there, you sweat so much, and they believe that if you don't sweat, then you're pure. You've like reached purity if it like wasn't hot and you didn't sweat. And the first time I did it, it wasn't that hot to me. You know, it was hot. I was sweating. My whole moo-moo, that's what I wore, was wet. It was just water, like sweat. I was completely drenched. And but the whole time I was in there, I would be like, I'd blow, and I felt like I was blowing fire because I was on fire. I was hot. It was insane. But I thought, like, yeah, I'm sweating out toxins and this and that. And like, then afterward, we'd tell each other experiences, and they'd be like, oh, I saw this face and this person, which is seeing evil spirits. You're not supposed to see spirits. You're not supposed to mess with that. No. God says no. But I thought for sure that was the answer, because we were praying. In there, we'd pray. They would pray for great prayers, you know, about love and this and that. But they're praying to the wrong God. They're praying to false gods. If they knew Jesus, it would be amazing. But so while I was going to those, I was like, yeah, I can't wait to go to the next one. So my friend called me, and we went to the next one. And then I went to another one. And the third one I went to, I called my friend, and I said, hey, and from Pittsburgh, come to the sweat lodge. I found it's just awesome. It's so much love, and we build fires and we talk, and it's great. And they cook for us after we eat. It's communion. It's beautiful. And so she came down, and I was still studying yoga and all this too. So she came down, and we went to this other sweat lodge, and I was like, man, oh yeah. I said, wow, it'd be so cool, like, if we smoked DMT in the sweat lodge, or peyote or something, because, like, peyote is well known there. They believe peyote opens your spiritual senses, which it does, but your spiritual senses to demons, to not love. It's false. And I'm really blessed that I didn't do peyote. But I was like, if it's meant to be, the universe will bring us DMT, and the universe, the controller of the universe is Satan. God is in control, but he's the one that runs the air and the principalities, the dark forces. And obviously, DMT is a drug, and it's not of God. So I'll just be like, if the universe will bring it to us, then it's meant to be. So my friend was like, yeah. So we went to the sweat lodge, and she loved it. She loved it. I loved it too. And I was like, wasn't it amazing? So I'm really sorry, but that was false, and I didn't know. It's not of God, and I'm really sorry. But so we left there. We went to the sweat lodge. Yeah, we were in the sweat lodge, and then after, we all jumped in the river, and then we left. And my friend said, hey, I have some DMT. I'll give it to you free. And I said, awesome! It's meant to be DMT, because DMT is supposed to like give you the best feeling in the world, and obviously it's not from God. And so she was like, yeah. So we smoked DMT, which is like white powder on weed, and we smoked it downtown, and we smoked it, and it only lasted for like 15 minutes. And while we were on it, I saw so many spirits and so many things, and it was very loving and it was beautiful. And that's what Satan does. He transforms himself into an angel of light, and he wants you to follow him because light and love, but it's false light and love. So while I was doing it, I was like, wow, that was the best thing in the world. And she had so much fun, and it was all false. It's all false. Because true love comes from Jesus, where you feel it all the time. You feel him all the time. You don't need an outward, external thing to make you feel love and feel anything. All you need is the peace of God and the truth. You need the truth. The truth. So after that day, the next day, I was like, hey, let's go to this yoga meeting. I got a message on Facebook. So the next day we went to this yoga meeting to meet a yogi. So I had a sheep's rug. I carried the sheep's rug with me because I didn't like sleeping in beds. I like to sleep on the floor. And I had bought this sheep rug, and I would just sleep on it. I'm like, I'm going to bring my sheep rug. And I brought it there, and I realized, like, other people had sheep rugs. Like, whoa, like, weird. And I guess that's part of something. And so we were there, and there was a yogi there, and telling us stuff like the truth to life, which is not truth to life. People would ask him questions like he was God, and how do you find love, and just all this stuff that I thought was like cool, And he would do qigong, and they would turn the lights off, and he'd be like, okay, this is how you do these breathing exercises to put you in a relaxed state, and da-da-da, and everyone loved it because it makes you feel relaxed. People are looking for peace. They're looking for love, and they're looking for peace, and they're getting it in all the wrong places because you have to keep going back for that. When you meet Jesus, you don't have to go anywhere. You always have him, and you don't need anything. So, yeah, we went to that yoga thing, and it's abomination to the Lord. And then she left, and then I started reading my Bible again, and I stopped really doing something. I didn't really want to go to the sweat lodges anymore, and obviously that was God telling, like, his hand holding me, and I didn't know any of this at the time. Still, he is revealing things that happened, and he's done for me, and it's just amazing. But so then I started reading the Bible, and I just loved it. I just thought it was beautiful. So then my brother, he gets out of prison, and I'm so excited. I was waiting for my brother to get out of jail for so long, and I just couldn't wait because he was like my best friend, and I just missed him. Wanted some of my family back, and so he got out and moved to Alabama, and so I came and lived with him for a little bit. And my plan was live with him for like a couple months and then go do something else. I ended up staying there for like 2 or 3 months. While I was there, I was still studying yoga, Bhagavad Gita, and still reading the Bible. I was reading the Bible for about a month. Maybe a month. Yeah, about a month. And I just kind of like, everywhere I went, I would carry around my books. I still had like 60 books, because I would go back to them every now and then, but I really stuck to 2 books. And all the books I had were an abomination to the Lord, I know now. And like powers and shamanism and stuff, because I was like, oh, shamans, they go around and heal people. And I'm like, healing, yeah. And it was not right. So, and then I just was reading, and then I still was in the Bhagavad Gita, and I started like talking and praying. I was like, I'm gonna start praying. I was into sun gazing. This was the last thing. I was into sun gazing, and I thought that you could harvest energy from the sun. So I basically became a sun worshiper. Would be like, look at the sun and kind of pray to the sun, and I would I would go running. I would run like 5 miles and just stare at the sun for like almost 5 minutes straight. I would stare directly into the sun, and I would look at it until I could see just like a moon, because when you look at the sun and it's just so bright. But when I looked at it so hard that all the glow went away and I could see the ball. And I did this for like a month straight. I would go and run and just stare at the sun. And I'm like, yeah, I'm harvesting energy. And I believed it. I would run like 5 miles in like 45 minutes. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I have so much energy. And I was hardly eating anything. I was just like, I'm so sustained. And I was vain because I thought, I was like, yeah, I look better. And it was intense. And at this time, so I was just like sun gazing, just directly staring into the sun. And I'm just so glad I still have eyes and eyesight because I looked at the sun so much that I shouldn't have eyesight. And then I was talking, I was like, I'm gonna start praying for my friends and stuff, but I didn't know who to pray to. No one ever taught me how to pray, or what to pray to, or who to pray to. So I was like, I'll just pray to all the things that I think that I've been taught are God. So I just started praying to like everything. I was like, well, if I pray to all of them, then I'll sure enough get one of them, right? Because if I pray to all of them, I gotta get one. So I was praying to like Shiva, I was praying to the sun, I was just Brahma, I was just saying names, like things that I learned and studied. And I just kept praying and praying for all my friends and stuff. Like, I would just go running I would just pray for 45 minutes straight, but obviously to false gods, and I didn't know. But I thought I was good. I was like, yeah, I feel better than I've ever felt in my life, So you think when you feel good, you're doing something right. And that's not true, because Satan can make you feel good too. Satan can heal you too, just so you'd be deceived. And at this point, I was going through some things, and I was trying to leave the house because I just felt like what didn't really fit in there. So I was trying to leave, and then I ended up going to Pittsburgh for a little bit. Then I came back, and my brother and we moved, and his girlfriend, to another home. And I helped because I was going to put my house in the backyard. Like, I was going to buy a tiny little shed and live in it and make it just like self-sustainable. So that's what I was going to do. And I was living with him for a while. And so that was my plan, but I ended up changing my mind. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm just going to go to Tahiti. So I was still reading the Bible. I actually pretty much stopped reading the Bhagavad Gita. So for like all this happened within like maybe a month or two. I'm not really sure. Very short amount of time. And so I was like, I'm done. I still was like wanting to leave the earth. I just wanted to disappear from everybody, and just go and live in the woods. I just wanted to live in the woods and live off the land and whatever. So, let's see. So at this point, I bought a plane ticket. It was $3,000 plane ticket to Tahiti. And I bought a backpack, a waterproof backpack. And I was just gonna go. I was like, okay, I'm not bringing my phone. I love you guys. And I'm just leaving, pretty much. So I was just gonna leave. And before I had left or anything, this lady came to my brother's house. This was before he moved, and she was a Jehovah's Witness lady. And she had a Bible, and she came to our house. She's like, and I was just super excited because someone wanted to read the Bible, because I just started to love the Bible. I thought it was beautiful, and I started believing things in the Bible, but I didn't really understand anything. I didn't pray. I didn't know to talk to Jesus. I just was reading the Bible and thought it was beautiful. So then the lady came, and I was like, wow, I have a lot of questions for you. And I was like, I'll put her to the test, because like I didn't know things. And so she came over, and actually Jesus did use her. There was some truth that she told me. And I hated holidays. I already knew they were created by man. And I was like anti-holidays. I still celebrated them because, well, I didn't really celebrate. I just was like, oh yeah, I'm here, whatever, okay. But I just didn't really care about them. I just felt like it was fake anyways. I'm like, why do I have to do this and spend money, and when every day should be a blessing, every day's pretty beautiful. And so the Jehovah's Witness people didn't believe in holidays. And they're like, because they're not in the Bible. And I'm like, wow, yeah, cool. So I don't believe in them either. So she started coming over, and we would have Bible studies. And for like maybe a month straight, we had Bible studies. And I learned some truth for her. But the main thing is they're trying to tell me that God's name is Jehovah and how important it is to know the name of somebody. They're like, well, can we know your name's Kelly? So isn't it important that we know your name? I'm like, well, yeah, but I just felt this icky feeling inside me, like telling me it was wrong, but I didn't know at the time. So she's like, come to the Kingdom Hall. So I was like, okay. So I went to their Kingdom Hall, and I went on Saturdays, and I liked it because they would read the Bible, and then they would ask questions, and I'd be like, oh, because I knew the answer somehow. And I had so much fun studying. It was awesome. I was just so hungry because I just thought I was just for truth, and I still didn't know it was exactly the truth. I just knew something because it was making me feel good, like real good, not like a false good. And so then I just went to the Kingdom Hall for a couple times, but then I just felt like I didn't fit in there at all. The first time I went, I felt so awkward. They're like, you have to wear a dress, but they were like really tight. Some of them wore tight dresses, and I'm just like, no, I'm not wearing a dress. I'm wearing my overalls, and this is who I am. I'm wearing overalls, so I wear like camouflage overalls, and they'd look at me funny. And so I would go there and answer questions, and some of the people, because they give you the microphone if you have an answer, and some of the people would come up to me and they'd be like, wow, Kelly, you've only been here for a week, and how'd you know that answer? And I'm thinking like, well, don't you all know those answers? Like, I thought like they've been here for years, and why do I only know this answer? I was kind of confused. So after I went there 4 times, I just felt like Jesus, like God was telling me, just don't go there. And I didn't know it was him talking to me still. Like, I didn't know. I recognize now it's conviction, weird feelings. But I still didn't have like the full truth of knowing. So, because I didn't throw away my books yet. I still had the Bhagavad Gita, but I wasn't reading it. I just had it. And then, so she'd come over, and every time she'd leave, I'd start reading the Bible myself. And I would just be filled and filled and filled. I'm like, wow, this is great. And then she came over one day and said, and I was like, I read Luke chapter 9, 10, and it said that we can heal in the name of Jesus, like he gave us all authority to heal in his name on earth. And I'm like, wow, we can heal in Jesus' name. Like, and it just made so much sense. I'm like, I don't need stones to heal people. I don't need food to heal people. Like, I don't need to heal myself. I don't need anything. Like, the power is in the living God. And the whole time I was seeking healing, I was seeking physical healing. I wasn't seeking spiritual healing. I didn't understand. And so I told her, and I was like, wow, we can speak in tongues and heal. And she was like, no, Kelly, that was back in the old times, and that's done away with. We no longer speak in a foreign language. That's done away with, and healing isn't possible on the earth. We'll fully be healed when we reach heaven. And my spirit was like, ugh. Like, this was like, ugh, I'm like, there's no way. And I said, okay. And she left, and then I called her, and I was like, I'm not going to study with you anymore. She was like, you're making a big mistake, Kelly. And I was like, okay. And I just hung up. And so, and then I read something the next day, and I was reading Corinthians. I started reading Corinthians, and I was reading where Paul talks about like men and women and fleeing fornication. How when you have sex with somebody before marriage, you're being sexually immoral, and you sin against yourself. And as soon as I read that, I jumped up in the air and praised Jesus, and I knew he was the truth, because there's something really personal that happened with me that I've been seeking the answer to, and I never understood until I read the truth. I read the truth to life, and it answered a question that I had for my whole life, and I'll share with you. Well, first, like when I read the truth, I'll tell you, okay, I read about how when you sin against yourself, it says flee fornication. That means like run, don't do it. That's really bad. And it made sense to me that He created man and woman for each other, and he created us to become one flesh. And it made sense to me that he created us to be one flesh. He didn't create a man and woman to be one flesh with many people. That's why marriage is so beautiful. You're not supposed to divorce. Like when you make vows, you're with that person, you become one flesh. It's beautiful. And you're supposed to wait to have sex before marriage. Yeah, you wait, and that's just even more beautiful to me, because I always like wanted to hang out with guys, but I never wanted to like do that stuff. I just like, why can't we just hang out? Like, why does that have to be such a part of it? And it did like deared me away from wanting to be in a relationship, because that was a big part of it. Like, you're supposed to have sex with that person, and I never had that desire, and it was really hard growing up, because people would tell me that I was cursed. They said, well, you're cursed, Kelly. You don't have the desire to have sex, and I can't believe you don't like sex, and this and that. And I just didn't understand it, so I just like thought something was wrong with me, and I'd look up stuff like, why don't I like to have sex? Google, and then it'd be like asexual, and I'm like, oh, asexuals don't like sex, and I'm like, okay, I'm asexual, and so I just won't date. I'll hopefully meet someone that's asexual and just wants to hang out, talk, play, climb trees, eat, swim, and just love each other like that. And I never understood why. But when I read that, because when truth hits you and you know it's truth, it's either going to harden your heart or it's going to bring you to tears and joy. And because you don't want to change or because you do want to change. And when I read that, I was like, yeah, Jesus is the truth. I was like, Jesus, you're the truth. I know you're the truth now. I know. Like, I know you're the truth. And I got down on my knees and I was like, Jesus, I know you're the truth. I was like, I will do anything for you, God. I don't care. I'll stay single forever. For whatever I have to do, I'll die for you. I want to die for you. I finally find something worth dying for. I want to die for the truth. Like when I was young, I would always say I wanted to die for the truth, but I didn't know what the truth was. And I was like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy right now. And I jumped up and down for like 10, 15 minutes straight and just like laughing. And I'm so glad I was alone. And it was such a beautiful moment. And he baptized me with his spirit right then and there in my brother's house. And I didn't know I was baptized and became born again. I didn't even know what born again meant. I didn't even know what baptized meant. But I knew that when I woke up the next day, I wasn't the same person. And that's what it means to be born again. You're a different person. You're the same person, but you're no longer have sin nature, like wickedness. Like now now you're striving after perfection, holiness, truth. You no longer want to do bad things anymore. You want to do the truth. You want to do the right thing in God's eyes. And I woke up and I had piercings all over me. I had like 2 giant hoop nose rings. I had this pierced. I had my lip pierced. I had my throat pierced. I had my tongue pierced. I had piercings all over me. And I woke up the next day and I looked in the mirror. Excuse me. And I was like, there was a bunch of metal in my face. And that was the first time I ever thought that I had a bunch of metal in my face. I used to think like, wow, my piercings are so cute. I love my giant nose rings. I'm different. I got my eye pierced and yada, yada, yada. And then he led me to the verses about he doesn't want us to hurt. Like our body is the temple. He lives inside of us when you're born again. And it's like when you pierce your body, you're ruining your temple. You're ruining your house for God. You're destroying it. And he told me not to cut, like in Deuteronomy, he tells you not to cut yourself, like don't get tattoos. And so I know like tattoos and piercings are sin because he just doesn't want us to hurt our bodies. We're supposed to be good to ourselves. And if you think about it, a tattoo is just cutting yourself. Piercing is just putting holes in yourself. It's just not. They may look cute, but God will change your desires. And so I just found the truth and I just was so happy because it made sense to me why I didn't want to have sex with men before marriage because it was not of God, and I was a truth seeker. So He'll convict you in things if you have desires, like holy desires. You can still have pure desires and not know Jesus. It won't mean anything if you don't know him, but he'll have mercy on you. And like, it got to the point so much where like, if I had a boyfriend, I would tell him, like, I sure, we can date, but like, I don't want to have sex with you. You can go with whoever you want, go for it. We can date, but you can go with whoever. And he would be like, okay. And then he'd be like, I can't do that. I'm like, well, let's not date. Like, that's what comes with me. Like, I don't want to, I try to date because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. When you don't know the real truth, you just try and do what you think you're supposed to do. And it's terrible. Because you think you're doing something, but you really feel icky. And yeah. And anyways, and then when I just, like, when I found the truth, when I met him, I was so hungry for the truth. I just kept reading and reading and reading. I still didn't pray yet, but I was talking to him. I started praying. Yeah, I started praying for, like, the fear of the Lord. I was like, make me fear you. I don't know what it means to fear God. Make me fear you, Jesus. Make me love you and show me what I'm supposed to do. Convict me, murder me if you have to. Whatever to glorify you and make people know that you're the truth. And and during this time, like, I was still stripping. I still didn't know. I still didn't know that. Like, how you might think, like, how could you not know stripping's bad? And it's like, well, when you all your life you thought, like, you're just gonna die, so who cares? And your body's a temple, as, like, do whatever you want with it. That's not what God means. The temple is mean be modest. But I thought, like, who cares? So for the first week I met Jesus, I was still in the club, but then I quit, obviously, because he showed me the truth. But it was idolatry, so I had a really strong hold on dancing, because I didn't go to the club to strip. I could care less about the money. I wanted to dance, and that was the only place with a pole. And so I was stuck there by bondage. And then he, like, showed me it was idolatry, and he started breaking chains off me. But while I was there, I met this guy, because I was still, like, I still had a lot of confusion going on. Just because I met Jesus, I just still had, like, felt like I was a new person, but I still had things I was battling, because I had so much false information in me. I had all this junk I was studying that's fake, that's false. It's just to distract you from Jesus. And I had a lot of stuff that I had to get out of me from all the sin I had done. I had committed so much sin against the Lord, done so many abominable things in his eyes, that I had so much ickiness in me. I had to fight it and I had to just get truth in me. I had to be full of love and truth. And I told you I was, like, still obsessed with triangles and the eye and stuff, and I would paint eyes and all that. Well, there's a guy there, and at the club I worked at, and he did metal, what's it called, welding. And I was like, oh yeah, I told you how I knew tattoos were wrong and piercings were wrong. Well, I came to that knowledge after this. I wanted to burn myself because I liked pain. I liked pain because it was the only thing that I could feel, and I told you I was like extreme self-denial. I'll just deny the pain. So I met this guy, and I'm like, hey, can you cut me out on a metal slab? I drew up an image what I wanted. I wanted 2 triangles and an eyeball in the middle, and it was literally like this big, like the size of a miniature Bible. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, and then apply it to a stick because I want to brand it to my leg. And he probably thought I was just nuts. I know he thought I was nuts, but I was like, yeah, I want this. So he got the slab, I drawed it out, and he started cutting it. A month goes by, he still didn't do it for some reason. Grace of the Lord. No, not allowing it to happen. And I was like, yeah, I just want it branded. And so he was going to brand my leg. Brand me with this giant eyeball and 2 triangles. I was going to have this giant brand on my thigh. And I was like, cool, yeah, that's different. Who cares, because I was wild. And praise the Lord that didn't happen. And I would never do that now. But I just want to tell you, like, these extreme things that your mind can think of. You can have your own crazy desires and thoughts, but a lot of things that are in your mind are demonically influenced. Like, there's evil spirits and demons that are real and roam the earth, and they speak to you in your head. Demons come to you through your own sin. When you sin, you let these things in, and they can tell you to do things. God would never tell me to burn myself. Only Satan would tell me to do that. And he's fire. He's hot. He's heat. He's evil. God would never tell you to put holes in your body. God would never tell you to put marks on your body. He loves you. He doesn't want you to hurt yourself. And I just realized so much stuff. I had to realize that everything I knew was wrong. Everything I knew was wrong. And I used to tell people, yeah, this helps this and this helps that. I was such a great worker for Satan. Such a great worker for him, but I didn't know. You just don't know. If you're not aware and not asking God for the truth, you're living lies. You have lies in you. And I was full of lies. I was full of lies up to here. And I was lying to people, but I didn't know. And when I met Jesus, I was so excited that I wanted to make him more real than ever, because he's invisible, but he's real. So I got a coffee cup, and I wrote Jesus on it. And I had coffee every morning with Jesus. And I just started reading his word and asking him things. He'd lead me to verses, and it just was amazing. It was so amazing. It was the most amazing moment of my life I was like, I know the truth to life. I know the truth to life. And it's just so amazing. I just wish everybody knew Jesus. I just wish everybody knew that God is wonderful, and his ways are good for us. His ways are really good for us. It's like a father. A father knows what's best for his kids. Even you may not see that it's best, and it may seem like hate, but it's really love, because it's caring. He cares for our soul, not for our flesh. Your flesh will wither, but your soul will live forever. And when he taught me that heaven and hell was real, and that I was on my way to hell, I just wanted to live for him. I wanted to change, because everything I did was wrong. I was a murderer. I was like a thief, a prostitute. I was just terrible. Like, why would heaven be heaven if evil evil can't exist in heaven, or it wouldn't be heaven? So why would sin be able to enter heaven? You know, the whole point of Jesus coming to earth was to show us how to be holy and pure and stop sinning. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. He gave me eyes to see. I was blind. I was like this. I was like walking around like this, just like most everybody. And you have to let go of things to be able to see the truth, and you can't see it until he removes the veil from your eyes. And it's so amazing. He'll teach you everything. He'll teach you how to speak, how to dress. Everything. He'll teach you everything. I wanted to share something. First that's how I met Jesus. And thought I probably missed so much, but Jesus is the truth, and you have to find him for yourself. If you care about life and you care about your soul, and you really know that you have to give an account for your life the day you die, and you face the one that created you, and he's going to decide if you lived a life pleasing to him or not, he doesn't want to send you to hell. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. He doesn't want to send anyone to hell. He created hell for Satan and his minions, not for us. But we're the ones that make the choice to go there by choosing not to obey him. But just know He loves you, and if you're alive listening to this, that's His mercy on you, and He's waiting with you like this. And then He'll give you a big hug when you come to Him, and He's just been waiting for you for so long to show you the truth. You don't have to live in shame. I was a divinator, I was a thief, I was a liar, I was a prostitute, I was bowing down to false gods, I was a sorcerer. And He saw all of it. He saw all of it. You know how, like, you do things secretly, and you think, well, no one's seeing this. Well, God's seeing it. But when you come to Him with a true repentant heart, He forgets all of it. That's amazing. He wipes you clean as snow. And then you have to keep seeking Him to stay clean. He forgets all your iniquities. Well, I wanted to share something with you that the Lord wanted me to share. And it might be a little, detailed, but people need to hear this. You need to know what's going on. You need to know that there's somebody after you all the time. The government may be trying to steal your money and your freedom physically, but Satan's trying to steal your soul. You make the choice of what's more important. But I wanted to share this with you, okay? I was in the strip club for about 6 years, and I thought, like, oh, I was a good stripper, because I didn't go home with men. I worked at work. But in the eyes of God, I was a prostitute, because God's very serious about men and women touching each other and how much He cares about marriage. And if you are a man or woman and your husband or wife or girlfriend is a stripper, and you're okay with her being a stripper, your heart has become desensitized and hard, and the only way it can be softened is by seeking God to have it softened. If you're okay with your wife being on top of men, fantasizing and seducing them, even though it's fairy tale, make-believe, it's still happening, and she's on top of many men in one night, and you're okay with that, and that doesn't bother you, you really need to ask God to help heal your heart, because it's not right. It's not right. And if you think, well, my wife comes home to me, she doesn't go home with those men, then you need your heart softened, because it's not okay. It's not okay that I was a stripper. It's not okay that I lap danced on multiple men while they fantasized about me, and then went home to their wife. That's not okay. I made many men commit adultery, an adulterous act. No, maybe not anything sexual happened, like intimately, but yes, in the eyes of God, it was an act of committing adultery. And it's not right. It's not right. I was a prostitute. I used my body to make money off of married men, even women. And no wonder why I didn't know I was involved in wickedness, because I had done it so long that my senses became desensitized, and I just thought, well, it's fake, and the Lord is still healing me, giving me my healing and senses back, because You become desensitized of all things, feelings, thoughts, what's right, what's wrong. It's not right for a man to come up and grab a woman inappropriately in areas that are not right. In the club, it's right, because in Satan's eyes, it's right. It's not right. The body is a temple, and it's meant to be modest, it's meant to be covered, and the woman is meant strictly for her husband. Do you know how precious this would be if men and women only stuck to each other? It's not right. I was so blind, y'all, I was so blind that I thought it's okay to just give lap dances all night on men, and just I would train my mind to block out what they were thinking or say to me, and I had to deal with men speaking provocative things that were not pure. My mind, I had to strengthen it to just ignore things. Sometimes it was so mentally and spiritually strainful, and hard that I'd go home crying. I would go home crying because I felt defiled. But people would just tell me, oh, it's the life of the stripper, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, it's the life of a stripper. All right, go back to work tomorrow. Just, we all have our breakdowns. It's pretty much what most strippers say. We just have our breakdowns, and you got to get out of the club for a minute. That's because it's killing you. It's taking a toll on your body because it's wrong. It's wicked, and it's wrong. And if anyone thinks that being naked in front of hundreds of men and being on top of hundreds of men is okay, it's not okay. And I'm telling you this because, not to make you upset and make you feel bad that you're a stripper, because I was one. I was a prostitute. There were times where actually I would go home with this one certain man, and he was married. There was one man that I would go with and I would be with because I actually liked him and I felt comfortable. And really, it was just lust and it was false. And he was married, and I would cause him to commit an adulterous act. His poor wife. Y'all, love is serious. If you love your husband, you will only want to touch him. You won't even want to touch other men. You won't even want to look at other men. If you love your wife, you won't want her to be around other men. I got used to just being naked. I thought it was just normal to be naked and talk to people. You become numb. You become so numb. You become numb. God didn't create us to become numb. Making love is a beautiful thing, and it was only meant to be done with your husband or wife. In the club is all lies. Even my name was a lie. Don't you not want to live lies? I don't want to live lies. I just want you all, especially all my friends, I love you guys so much. The ones that I grew relationships with and friendships with in the strip club, you know who you are, and you know I love you, and you know I always loved you and just cared about you and was so excited to see you. I would just come to the club just to tell you guys hi, because I love you guys. But God loves you more. I know change is hard, and it will require a whole lot of change, but you just have to care about the truth. Care about your soul. Care about other souls. Care about the feelings of others. Realize that when you're flirting with a man that has a wife at home, how would you feel? How would you feel if that was happening and your husband was out flirting with a woman? It's not okay if it happens, but if you do it, oh, it's just false, it's fake, that's what I would do. I would seduce people, and that's wrong. Satan is a liar. He is a very, very, very sneaky one. He's sneaky, okay? And he makes things seem okay, and they're not okay. They're not okay. We're all going to face God one day. Don't be destroyed due to lack of ignorance, due to lack of knowledge. He says he loses most of his people because of lack of knowledge. Just know right now in your heart that if you die right now, you're going to see God. Heaven is beautiful. I just know it. I want to see everyone in heaven. I love you guys so much.